If what J.P. Morgan did was true, then it would be huge news. But we're going to break down the veracity of this story about closing the entire precious metals trading desk in New York and moving it to Singapore overnight. Let's talk about it as we explore. It is rather suspicious timing, for sure, as it apparently had occurred on Thanksgiving Day through a linked email, as referenced by the Still report, for what J.P. Morgan did for its entire gold trading desk. It was an escape. It was not an expansion, he says. And this was something that the only source that there is a linked email from which he pretty much quotes in his report, but does not show the actual email. Now, does that mean it's not true? No, it's just that there's no news stories on this. But think about what's going on. There's a lot happening in the precious metals market, and honestly, part of this would not surprise me if it was true. But upon research that I have done, the only thing that I can find goes back to 2010. When J.P. Morgan set up a gold vault in Singapore and some trading that is going on there. Fast forward to 2019, well, the story changes. Well, one thing that does not change, and that is gold itself. It is a stable store of value. J.P. Morgan knows it. All of the big bullion banks know it, as well as the central banks. Hence why they are continuing to accumulate it on record pace. Yes, indeed. My friends at Summit Metals, they know this, and they are empowering you to elevate your wealth and be your own central bank by holding on to gold. So check them out in the link in the description below to see for yourself their great customer service and fast shipping. Now, gold is a metal that will continue to trade no matter what. No matter what the markets do or say, we're going to continue to see gold trade in one form or another, mostly in physical form. That's for sure. The central banks certainly know it. So what happened in 2019? Well, some are speculating that Mr. Bill Still may be conflating old news with new news. I don't think that's the case. The guy is pretty smart. He's done some great documentaries dating back to the 1990s about the Federal Reserve System and precious metals. So some respect for him, but then again, people get things wrong, and we would need to see more verification before we can validate this story. And we may get it soon. He just may be upfront on it. You know, that's typically how these things work, the first report on them. Well, there's no other sources other than their inside sources and what have you. And they put their reputation on the line. So we'll see how this plays out. I would love to see that linked email, though. That'd be quite fascinating. So what happened in 2019? Well, Singapore was investigating J.P. Morgan for fraud and for precious metals trading irregularities. And that was happening in Singapore. So they were not in a good place in Singapore at the time back in 2019, which makes the report even more suspicious. Now, there's other references and the like to what's going on with J.P. Morgan that we know that they're under regulatory scrutiny in Singapore. And that's after what had been led up from about 2008 to 2016 with precious metals manipulation with J.P. Morgan. They had to pay a $920 million settlement back in 2020 for metals manipulation. Now, what does that mean? Well, it means that they're under selfish motivation for traders at the precious metals trading desk. They wanted to move the price of silver and gold and platinum in both directions in order to profit from those trades. It was not about a collaborative effort with them, among other banking institutions, to suppress the price of gold or silver. No, it was a selfish motive to move trades and to spoof the market for their own well-being and for their own financial gain. And they were caught red-handed. And it was a highly publicized case that I documented on this channel at the time of the trial and sentencing phases. And that is done and gone. So what is this about with what's been reported here and alleged that J.P. Morgan's entire gold trading desk essentially fleeing to Singapore in a panic? Well, we don't know. But there's a lot happening for sure with regards to what has been wanted and has been proposed in the Congress of the United States of America by Senator Mike Lee from Utah to do an entire audit that would revolve every 5 years of the gold reserves. Now, what association does J.P. Morgan really have with that? Well, very little to none, but nonetheless, and there could be a correlation. That is, there's an audit there. Where is this gold coming from? Where is it going? And what other entities could be aligned with it, and what have you. And maybe some people feel that J.P. Morgan has their hands in the cookie jar, so to speak, or the gold vaults, and some people feel the gold is not there, and J.P. Morgan could be one of the reasons why it's not there, dating back for many years. And so maybe that would be a motivating factor for them to move to Singapore in a panic after they have already been investigated in Singapore for irregularities. So we'll see. It's very interesting for sure to see how this plays out. But nonetheless, there's no sources for this other than this linked email, which we're not able to see. But this video and report that was put out by Bill Stills is very short. Just reporting on irregularities. And there's been so many irregularities in the gold and silver market lately that, it does sound like it could be believable. But we'll see how this plays out. It is fascinating. But no matter what, I think we're gonna hear more and more about stories like this, about what's going on, things that seem rather suspicious, much like what we saw with the CME shut down for about 11 hours just late Thursday. That was on Thanksgiving as well. Seems very suspicious, but again, there's a lot behind the scenes and a lot of things that are occurring on technically that where it could have happened. The suspicion is aroused, but when you think about suspicion, you think about how transparent that suspicion could be. Why would they do that on purpose? My mind goes back and forth on that for sure. And of course, something like this, even though there was no press release from J.P. Morgan doing it in essentially the dead of night per se, because apparently 50, traders and their families were ordered to move to Singapore to continue their work there. A quick, abrupt move. It tells you something. I don't know. We'll see how it plays out, if there is some truth to it. But my guess is if the report and the news does come out that this did happen, it's going to be major breaking news. And if Bill Still was in front of this to such a large degree, and this turns out to be the case, well, I tell you what, he is doing some great work for sure. However, if it's not the case, or it can't be substantiated enough, well, it's going to tarnish reputations, I think, as people report on this. So we should be very, very careful when covering this story, which is why I wanted to bring it to you, just in case, there to be able to have a high level of scrutiny with stories like this, because there's so much happening. There's a lot of noise, and this could be a bit of noise. Well, quite a bit of noise for sure that could be coming across to cloud the markets and what have you. We don't want that. We want to have a fair, accurate reporting of what's going on. For sure. And again, I think that honestly, if you're going to report a story like this, there really should be at least some level of proof or something to show, like these emails. Of course, emails can be fabricated and can be faked as well. And in this day and age, most anything and everything can be faked, deep faked, AI, all that kind of thing. And stories like this very well could easily get out of hand and be reported over and over again, much like the 500 ounces of silver inside of a Tomahawk cruise missile. There's zero substantiation that is actually the case, but the story has been reported so much and has reached so far and wide. I'm still getting comments on it on my videos from people who've not seen the videos that I've done about it multiple times, and multiple times that I've referenced it. There's no substantiation to it. So I wanted to kind of get ahead of this story just to see, and also be open-minded to the possibility that it is and could be the case. So we'll see how it plays out. Nonetheless, we continue to watch gold. We continue to see what happens with the metal. It is up, nearing new record highs again. Gold is not as flashy as silver in terms of its volatility. And I think in many ways that's a good thing, which is why I have decided since 2017 to focus more on gold as a stable store of value. But nonetheless, I still believe in silver and hold it as well and buy it. But nonetheless, let me know what your thoughts are about this story, and especially if you've heard anything new or can substantiate any of this claim. I would love to know. But imagine, literally on Thanksgiving Day, you get a linked email from your bosses at the JP Morgan that says you got to move to Singapore by the end of the week. It sounds extremely crazy to me. Nonetheless, you never know. I'd like to extend a multitude of gratitude to each and every one of you for taking the time to watch this video, and to encourage you to please rate, share, comment, and subscribe.